Hello, I hope you're doing well today. This is Aisha, and I am going to walk you through 16 things that I have experienced ever since I started my transition about 16 months ago. So let's get started. So, number one, it took a hot minute for my body to adjust to the HRT that I was taking. I remember the morning that I woke up after my first estrogen injection, I had fever like symptoms, even though I didn't have a fever. I just felt like kind of like malaised. I had like muscle aches, that kind of stuff. And then when I started progesterone, it just made me really tired the next few days. I don't know. Not a major thing. Just figured that I would mention it because it's not something that the doctors warned me about. But your mileage may vary. You might not experience that. So number two, I am just blown away, still to this day, by the amount of love and support that I got when I first came out. My coming out post on Instagram has the most likes that my personal Instagram account ever has received. And it was just kind of nice to see all the lovely comments from people, even people in my life who I hadn't spoken to in years, just kind of congratulating me on being my true self. I don't know, it really just showed me that people in this world are really loving. And despite all that's happening in the world, whether it be politically or whatever, there's always going to be people who want to make space for us, which I think is very sweet. So number three, and this is quite a big one actually, is that things happen a lot faster than I anticipated. So for one, I wasn't planning on transitioning in college, or at the very least, not early on in college. I really wanted to lose weight or whatever, or I was just making a bunch of excuses basically to hold off on starting my transition. And things just kicked off a lot sooner than I thought they ever would. And the reason why I transitioned sooner than I thought that I would is because, number one, if you're living a lie, if you're living as a ghost, things are just miserable for you, so you're very antsy after a certain while. And two, I just had the opportunity to transition. If you Google informed consent clinics, you can find a lot of places in the United States that will provide you pretty easy access to HRT, even if you have to pay for it or go through insurance for it. There's not as many hurdles for it at an informed consent clinic, so that's what I did. So as soon as I learned what an informed consent clinic was, I immediately booked an appointment because I was like, this is such a great opportunity for me. And yeah. And when it comes to coming out, I came out a lot sooner than I thought I would. So my thought process at the time was that I wanted to be like a bombshell whenever I walked into the room so that people would be like, is this actually a man or what am I looking at? And that ended up not being what happened because, number one, I felt very nervous at the time about just being outed. Being outed is such a huge thing if you're in the closet. And I just wanted to come out on my own terms. And number two, I came out to my family pretty early. I also wanted to wait 9 months to come out to them, but I once went to my mom's house after not seeing her for 6 months, and immediately she saw my pierced ears, and she was like, "Did you have earrings?" And she saw my waxed eyebrows. She was like, "Girls do that." And then she was actually watching Tom and Jerry. And I was like, she's in a good mood. I'll just tell her that I'm trans. So the opportunity struck to come out and to start my transition as well. And I'm grateful for that. So number four, I was a massive bitch when I first started my transition. So the reason why could be coincidental because I had a lot of things going on in my life at the time. But also your brain is actively changing. Your brain is changing when you are on HRT, and you have to respect that. At the very least, in my case, I was very immature and I was very irritable at the time. And now it's just not a problem. So again, it's just something to be aware of because it's something that people in the community have reported. So yeah. So number five, I am so much more sensible and a lot less reckless compared to when I was a man. I am just more thoughtful with my actions. I don't needlessly risk things for pleasure. I'm a lot kinder to people, at least in my opinion. And it could be because of brain chemical changes, but it also could just be because transitioning gives you the space to grow as a person. I'll get to that later in the video. But either way, I just see it as a positive. So, yeah. So number six, and this was kind of a doozy, but it does tie into the last point. Oh my god, my headband's slipping. So, number 6, and this is kind of a doozy, but I think that transitioning gave me the space to grow and mature in a way that I wasn't really able to when I was a man. And this really does tie into the last point. When I was a man, back in the olden times, I was very self aware. I knew a lot of what my problems were, but I didn't do anything about them because I had a lot of learned helplessness. And I think that that's something that a lot of men struggle with. And definitely a lot of the men in my life struggled with it. So I kind of picked up on it. Um, but in my opinion, at least what helped me was just kind of like transitioning is a very hands on process. You are taking the reins of yourself and your own growth and your own development. That's a really core part of transitioning, actually, is just the amount of control you exercise over yourself. So you just kind of develop this sense of agency and self efficacy to just kind of do the things that you want, especially because like you're making a massive change to yourself, you might as well go all the way. And another thing is my transition was full of like a lot of moments of introspection, and it really just gave me like a lot of time to think and think hard about like my life and what led me to that moment. And that was very helpful and beneficial to just changing some negative thought patterns and things like that. So think of that what you will. So number 7 is I came to respect myself more. And I think that this is because I became more comfortable with who I am. And I was just growing so much as a person during that time. And I don't know, you just come to love yourself when you are a sculptor and you craft it. I don't know. At least in my case, that's what happened. Can't speak for everyone, but at least that's what happened to me. So number 8 is active transportation really made me snatched, at least in comparison to where I was before. And so what I mean by active transportation is just walking and riding a bike, right? The way that body fat redistribution works, and I'm not a doctor, by the way. I'm not a doctor, if you can't tell by all the stuffies behind me and the youthful look on my face. From my knowledge, I believe that body fat redistribution is like, it adds new fat to new places, the places that should be going. As in, like, if you start estrogen, you're going to add body fat to like the places that a cis woman has body fat. But you still have the original fat from pre-transition. You got to lose that somehow. And the way that I lost a lot of that fat was just by walking around, riding my bike. And this wasn't intentional. It's because I don't have a car and I was living in a city at the time where things were just far from where I lived. So I had to just rely on my own 2 feet. And my roommate, by the end of the summer, said to me, quote, "In the last 3 months, I saw you go from just a regular guy to a goddess." So I really took that to heart. So number 9 is some people do misgender me, but it's not malicious. And most people generally don't care that I'm actually trans. So granted, I do live in a big city, and the times where I am misgendered, it is usually when I am more mask presenting. And just as an aside, I don't like to present mask. It's just I don't have enough clothes to present femme all the time. And my voice training's not there all the way. I give people grace when I get misgendered in those kinds of scenarios because it's like, you didn't know better. And for the most part, at least where I live, people just don't care about whether or not I'm trans. They just want to live their own lives. People are the main characters of their own stories. So they're not going to like spend a lot of time like obsessing about you, right? Unless they're like really creepy, which thankfully I've avoided. So yeah. So I guess the advice that you might want to take away from this is move to a big city where nobody's going to care about you. However, that's not really realistic for a lot of people. So I recognize my privilege in everything that I just said right now. So number 10 is explanations will never be satisfying to people who just don't understand transitioning or the queer community. And what I mean by explanations is just kind of like, just any kind of like trying to rationalize why you are trans or what you're doing, things like that. Because being trans is a mystery, even to trans people, right? Like nobody knows why we are this way. And I think that's beautiful for one, but two, like you can't really answer any questions about like, why are you trans? Why are you doing this? Right. I once had like this really weird conversation with an uncle of mine when this was like after I came out to my family, and he asked me, "Are you transitioning for logical reasons or sexual reasons?" And I'm like, "What the fuck does this mean?" I didn't say that out loud. I said, "I'm transitioning for emotional reasons." And he fought back against that. He said, what did he say? Not everything is about emotion. Not everything is about emotion. So I don't know. You're going to get a lot of invasive questions from people who like don't know. And oftentimes, like, it's well intentioned. People just are curious. But oftentimes, it's just people are just wanting to just like stonewall you, and they don't really care to have a productive conversation. You just got to know which is which. But either way, I do respond to invasive questions the same way, which is I will just say, I am happier now. I'm much happier now that I've transitioned than before I transitioned. And if that's not satisfying enough, I'll just try to reiterate that point another way until they shut up. So number 11, and this is like very serious, is that street harassment is very scary. I notice it a lot more as a woman now. I used to be able to go out at night alone at like 2 in the morning for a walk and like not worry about my safety whatsoever. And that's not true anymore. That is seriously not true anymore. If I walked outside alone at 2 in the morning nowadays, I would just be nervous as fuck. And I would be looking over my shoulder all the time. It would be just very nerve-wracking and potentially like something bad could happen. But I was with a group of friends and we're all pretty like queer presenting. And we were like walking down the street and this was at night. And like these two boys and this one woman were like calling us fat, and other slurs. And they were following us. And so one of my friends was just shouting back at them. And I'm like, Grace, why are you doing that? But eventually, like, we just had to like run to one of my other friends' houses. So it does kind of get kind of scary for a visibly queer person. And not just that, but like, you do kind of start to notice like how entitled men feel to women and their bodies. And this is like very visible with street harassment, right? Like, I was once for New Year's, like this was like New Year's Eve, I got on the bus and I was like in this cocktail dress, and it was like a very nice cocktail dress. And I was like pretty dolled up in my makeup. And I just kind of like sat down on the bus to like go to my friend's place for a party. And the guy next to me was just catcalling me, just harassing me. And it's like, not like I could move around because the bus was completely full, right? Sometimes you're just kind of like stuck in an awkward situation like that. Nowadays, like I have an op on my bus system, but like whenever he sees me, like he'll be like, ma'am, ma'am, ma'am. And then he'll call me a, and it's just a complete stranger. I don't know his name. So this kind of stuff is scary and you gotta be like aware of it before you like transition. And another thing is you definitely want to take lessons from the cis women in your life and the other trans women in your life who've been going at it for a very long time, as to how to deal with street harassment, because dealing with street harassment is a learned skill. It takes a while to really know what you're doing. I still like fuck it up all the time. I will like laugh in their faces. I will just escalate a situation even if I think that it's going to help by say like just ignoring a person. Creeps don't like being ignored, so sometimes you have to acknowledge them, right? Which is kind of scary. So it's a very delicate balancing act. So definitely try to like leverage the community in your life to learn how to deal with street harassment. So number 12 is I am embracing my heritage a lot more. When I was a man, I kind of found that American culture definitely like forces men to assimilate to be successful academically or professionally or socially. And this pressure definitely does exist for women. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It definitely does exist for women. But I have found that I myself have been a lot more comfortable exploring my heritage. My family is Desi. I'm the child of immigrants. So first of all, I guess I found myself embracing the material aspect of Desi culture, whether that be using henna or using Indian hair products, right? And so it's been kind of nice, especially when it's like gender affirming in that way. But it's not just material culture, it's also just kind of like looking back to the values of like the matriarchs in your family, which is a little esoteric, but it does kind of segue into the next point, which is I am just like my mom, for real. At least for me, my mother was like the prime example of womanhood my entire life. She is a matriarch, she is a beast, I love her. And I just kind of find myself emulating her more and more, even in like the little things. But also, like, my mom's not happy that I'm trans, but she's happy that I'm a daughter now. And so she'll like try to like rope me into like things that she's interested in. So, for example, she once gave me this bag of makeup, right? And as she was giving me this bag of makeup, she was like, "This is demonic." I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And so, but it was some good makeup. So, yeah, I just realized I didn't put on makeup for this video. I meant to put on makeup. So, number 14 is that sisterhood is amazing. And by sisterhood, I mean just kind of like women are so kind to other women most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. And I think it's because like a lot of women have a lot of the same struggles. And so we just kind of like support each other through it. I have found that the men in my life tends to be very competitive, whereas the women in my life tends to be more collaborative. So make of that what you will. Maybe it doesn't apply in your case, but womanhood in my experience is just full of a community that is so large and full of so much acceptance and so much love that I've frankly like never seen in a community ever before. So number 15 is the trans community is really beautiful, but also it can be judgmental at times. And so in terms of the beauty aspect of things, I want to point you towards a documentary that I actually made called Pillar. It was about the closure of a youth homeless shelter in Columbus, Ohio that served primarily queer youth. And it was a team of activists who stepped up to start a fundraiser for people who were in the shelter and started to form an informal network for couch surfing. I don't know. So I just found that really beautiful. The trans community is full of a lot of mutual aid. And I'm not going to explain it the best because I'm not like too involved in like the more organized aspects of mutual aid. From my recollection, a lot of it just comes down to just giving what you can, taking when you need it, and just supporting your community. Oftentimes, the trans community will find itself forming the functions of a state, whether it be through trying to house people or fundraise for people who are in a youth shelter. A lot of this is because of really tragic reasons. It's because the trans community has been neglected by the state and by other institutions in society, like the church, etc. And so we do kind of have to fend for ourselves. And because we fend for ourselves, we just show each other a lot of love and connection and care. But the flip side is that in the trans community, some people have the mindset of like, okay, if you're not transitioning this way or for these reasons, then you're not really trans, or you're somehow invalid in some way, or you are X derogatory term, right? I just don't like that. I just don't like that. And I hope that this video isn't adding to that because I am talking about my own personal experience first and foremost. But just know that every trans person has their own individual experience. But what I'm talking about is the people who will be like, oh, like, you need gender dysphoria to be trans, or, oh, you're not passing your Bricky or whatever. We should not be putting other people down, let alone people within our own community. So number 16, and this is the most important thing, I am a lot happier now. I was really a ghost before I transitioned. I was just kind of like, I won't say floating in the ether, but I was like really angry at myself and at the world. I was like really depressed, and I'm still like struggling with mental health, to be honest, but it's a lot better. I think that transitioning has helped with that like considerably. So I didn't take any offense at this, but somebody once told me that I used to be like Donnie Darko rocking back and forth in the basement. I don't know, I've never seen the movie, but like I was just kind of like full of anger and sadness and entitlement. And I think that transitioning really helped me a lot. And she followed up by saying, I can see you smiling, I can see you laughing, I can sense that you're a lot happier. And a compliment that I have received from a lot of people in my life, completely independently of each other, is that I am a lot, quote unquote, lighter than I used to be, which I really enjoy. You know what I mean? I really enjoy that I am no longer like a brooding boy. But yeah. So in conclusion, being trans is really scary right now, and I want to validate that, right? Like, so if anyone's on the fence about transitioning, like, your concerns are very valid, right? Like, whether it be because of your family, whether it be because of the political climate, whatever, right? And I definitely acknowledge that, like, I am very privileged in saying all of the things that I've said in this video. Like, I have given transitioning, like, glowing reviews, right? But I live in America. I live in a big city. I have a supportive family. I have supportive friends, and a lot of them. I have good health insurance. So things have been pretty easy for me. And if you're trans, you are a marginalized minority. You are not treated well by society a lot of the time. So that's all very valid. However, transitioning has made me a much happier and, I'd say, better person than I was before. And honestly, I would do it all over again. You know, I'll sometimes have this discussion with my friends as to whether or not we wish we were cis women or cis men or whatever. I'll have this discussion with my trans friends. And honestly, I'm very happy to be trans. I think that you are sculpting a beautiful statue out of marble. You are really taking your life into your own hands. And I don't know, I just think it's really beautiful. So, yeah. I think that's a good note to end on. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. And if you really like this video, subscribe. So yeah, take care.